Victorian England, I'm Brendan Simpson.
And I'm Julie Zach.
Breaking news here in 1833. Another Factory Act has just been passed.
Yes, it has, Brendan, and this particular Factory Act will include shorter hours, a guaranteed education, and inspectors will regulate all of these improvements.
More specifically, a child will only be able to work 12 hours a day, which is a great improvement from in certain cases, a child would work as much as 18 hours consecutively.
A person under the age of 18 also can't work nights and can only work 69 hours a week. Another new addition to this Factory Act is that any child who works 48 hours a week will also have some form of education.
That's right, Julie. Hopefully now that child laborers will have some form of education, they might be able to get a better job than working in a factory for the rest of their lives.
I know what the viewers at home are thinking. How will all of these ideals be enforced? Well, the answer is by the inspectors.
We were able to get a hold of an inspector for an interview. Here it is.
So I'm here with Inspector Clark, and I'm going to be asking him a few questions on his thoughts on the Factory Act. So, Inspector Clark, what will you be looking out for when you inspect a factory?
Well, a big thing we need to look out for is the mistreatment of children.
Oh, really?
Yes. Oftentimes the factory owners physically harm the children by means of a whip or a club.
Wow, that's awful. What other things will you be looking out for in factories?
Well, one thing that is often overlooked is that factories don't usually give the proper amount of time for lunches, which is an hour and a half.
What's one of your favorite things about the new and improved Factory Act?
I really like that the writers of the Factory Act granted the children days off for Christmas and Good Friday. You wouldn't believe the reactions of some of the families when they heard that their little son or daughter would finally be able to spend the entire Christmas day with the family.
That's a great addition to the Factory Act. Thank you very much for your time, Inspector Clark. You've really helped inform the viewers of this new law and the effect that it will have on children and their families.
No problem, Julie.
Now back to the news desk.
Wow, what a great interview.
I know. And to follow that, our news team has compiled footage documenting the history of child labor. The Industrial Revolution occurred during the Victorian era. The new factories opening sparked the need for cheap labor. Children fulfilled this need for the factory owners.
Children were hired because of their nimble fingers, which controlled the machines with ease, and they were very hardworking.
A child laborer's day starts very early in the morning. They wake up at around 5 a.m. and get ready for a 12 to 18-hour workday. They live in these small homes that they share with many other people as well.
Shortly after 5 a.m., masses of children walking to work filled the streets.
Child labor occurred in all different places, like farms and factories, but the most common place for child laborers to work were in the coal mines and textile mills.
Coal mines were very tough on children. In the coal mines, children worked underground in small, dark spaces, opening and closing traps that provided ventilation.
Textile mills also contained a lot of child laborers because the owners hired so many of them. They discovered children were good employees because of their small size and could do parts of work better than adults could.
After production became centralized in factories, the amount of child laborers increased even more because machines did all the heavy lifting.
All these new machines were great for the factory owners, but not so good for the children. They suffered a lot of injuries from them.
Some of these injuries included finger loss, and in the case of the girl, if they got distracted, their hair would get caught in the machine, which would result in them getting scalped.
Although these short-term injuries were very bad, what was even worse was the long-term diseases caused by factory work.
Brendan Simpson here with Dr. Livingston to teach us about some of the common diseases caught by child laborers.
One common disease caught by child laborers and their families was cholera. Cholera was caused by the intake of unsanitary water.
What were some of the symptoms of cholera?
Some symptoms of cholera are nausea and vomiting, diarrhea, and dehydration.
Were there any long-term effects to cholera?
Most of the time, the long-term effect of cholera was death, because the people would get so dehydrated that they just couldn't function anymore and they would die.
Dr. Livingston, were there any other common diseases caught by child laborers?
Another common disease caught by child laborers working in coal mines was called coal workers' pneumoconiosis. better known as the black lung disease. People would get this from working in coal mines. They would breathe in too much dust or coal, and that's why it's called the black lung disease, because it would turn your lungs black instead of the natural pink.
What were some of the symptoms of black lung disease?
Some symptoms of the black lung disease was shortness of breath, a severe cough, and obstruction of airways. This disease also led to emphysema.
Thank you so much, Dr. Livingston, for informing us about the different diseases caught by child laborers. Now, we have one more bit of information in the documentary before turning back to the news desk.
At the end of the day, the child laborers returned to their home to get a few hours of sleep, only to begin this brutal cycle all over again. Wow, that was an informative video on child labor during the Victorian era.
It sure was, Julie.
So once again, I'm Julie Zach.
And I'm Brendan Simpson.
Stay classy, Victorian England.